Welcome. Today we're going to discuss how to use a special type of join, a sequential value group, to determine the consecutive number of years a person has given to your institution. In our example today, we're going to be discussing and looking for people who have given 5 or more years sequentially at any point in time throughout their giving history. To start, we're going to go to the query tool inside of Slate, and we're going to create a new query. For these type of queries, we're going to use the configurable joins type, and we're going to choose the base of person. We want 1 row per person. To start our query, we're going to add a couple of exports about the person, perhaps just their first name and their last name, so we know who we're looking at. The next step comes with adding a filter that pares down this 101,000 rows to just those people who meet our criteria. In this case, people who've given 5 or more years consecutively. The way we're going to do this is we're going to use a subquery filter. Inside of our subquery filter, we're going to give it a name, something that's easy to remember, like 5 or more years of consecutive giving. Our aggregate type is going to be exists. We want to find the people for whom this is true. Our next step is to add a join to a special system join called sequential value groups. When we add this join, we need to define what is the data point or the value that Slate is going to use to determine what items are sequential. In our case, we're going to look at the gift date because the gift date will tell us the year that gifts were made and whether those years were consecutive. So we'll add a new join here. This join is going to go out to our gifts base. We'll save that join, and now we need to bring in an export where we can describe what exactly Slate is counting sequentially. We'll click the export button and choose gift date. Our next step is to format this date in a way that makes it comparable between all of the gifts years, rather than have the date and time, which this value is returning right here. If we double click the export, we can change the format type to be date and provide a format mask such as YYYY, which will return the full year that the gift was made. We can click Save, and then Save again. Now that our join has been added, we can start to filter based on those sequential values determined by this particular join. Adding in a filter, we now see that we have a few options available to us: the count, the max, and the min of the range that which we're calculating. In this particular case, we'll add in a count. Because we're looking at 5 or more years of consecutive giving, we'll choose greater than or equal to 5. We'll go ahead and click Save, and then Save again. We now see that our number of rows has dropped to 3. If we preview these results, we can see who they are. It is Alexander and Elizabeth Hamilton, as well as Michaela Abraham. But now we need to find out, well, what exactly are those ranges that they've given for 5 or more years? What's the start date? How many years have they given consecutively? What's the last time in that range that they have given? What's that last date? So let's now add some exports that make this information available to us. Our first step will be to add a subquery export and recreate the process that we just did when adding our filter for 5 or more consecutive years of giving. To do this, we'll add a join, again to our sequential value groups, and then we'll connect out to our gift table. From here, we'll repeat the process of grabbing the gift date and formatting it in a way that lets Slate calculate the number of years, YYYY. From here, we'll again add our filter. We'll only want to return the values where it's 5 or more years of consecutive giving. We'll choose a count, we'll choose greater than or equal to, and we'll insert 5. From here, we can now choose some exports. This first row shows the exports available for our sequential value groups. We have count, max, and min. In this case, we'll bring in all of them. We can clean up the way that these are going to be reported by adding in literals between them. We can have a literal for a colon, as well as perhaps a hyphen to separate our date ranges. Looking good so far. Let's now go ahead and add a name for this export, perhaps consecutive years of giving detail. We'll want to add a row separator in case a person has multiple stretches where they've given over 5 years consecutively. If we were to go ahead and save this export and preview our results, we can now see that Alexander, Elizabeth, and Michaela now have consecutive years of giving that's over 5, and we see the range of their giving. In the case of Alexander and Elizabeth, we see that their most recent, or their max range, is 2019, and their first part of that range started in 2014. And there you have it, counting consecutive years of giving with sequential value groups. Enjoy!